You have a child going to college. How do you get the most out of the financial aid? How do you fill out those complicated, mind-boggling financial aid forms that look for all the world just like another tax form you got to fill out? And here's another thing. Those financial aid formulas are just like taxes. If you earn extra money, you get less aid. It's like having a tax, and the tax rate is as high as 47%. So it makes a whole lot of difference how you fill out those forms and where your assets are and where your income is. And I got some tips from Troy Onick. He runs a firm called Strategy, which specializes in walking parents past the minefield of financial aid forms. He gave me a couple of good tips. And let's start by explaining, first of all, that there are 3 different aid formulas in use in the United States. There's one group of colleges called the FAFSA group that works off a federal methodology. There's a much smaller group called the profile group. These tend to be more elite schools that have their own different set of formulas for how to tax assets and income in the family that's applying for aid. And there's a third group called the 568 group, 26 colleges, very elite colleges that have yet another formula. And where your kid goes to college makes a big difference to where you want to put your assets or where you want to have your income showing up. So let's look at just one of these tips that Troy gave me. It has to do with paying off your mortgage. If you have extra cash on hand and your kid happens to be applying to one of those Section 568 colleges, which includes a lot of prestigious ones like Dartmouth, Duke, and MIT, it makes a whole lot of sense for the family to use extra assets to pay down their mortgage and essentially store their net worth in the form of home equity, which isn't fully reported on the form. Another tip that Troy gave me has to do with what should grandparents do to help their grandchildren. He had a situation where a grandparent was very generous to a grandchild, gave him $114,000 worth of stock to help pay for college, and it was going to ruin his financial aid until they figured out a way to move those assets into a college savings plan where they were more sheltered. It made a difference of $20,000 a year for 2 years of that kid's college. Another tip has to do with divorces. Does it help, for example, to park the kid with the custody of the parent that has lower assets or lower income? And the answer is yes, but only at certain schools. Only at that large FAFSA group of schools. At those places, having the child in the custody, or 51% of the time, with the lower earning parent makes a big difference. At the other schools, the profile group and the Section 568 group, it doesn't work. And let's just try one more strategy that this was used by Troy Onick for one of his clients, a single mom in Seattle. She had a very low income. It was just over $50,000. She had a daughter who was applying to a FAFSA school. What happened there was the parent rather, and her daughter, between them, had several $100,000 in trust assets. If they had to report those assets on their aid form, the child would have gotten no aid. But it just so happens that with a well-timed tax deduction, the mother's income dropped below $50,000. That kicked her into a special provision with a streamlined application where she didn't have to report the assets. Bottom line, the daughter is getting $19,000 a year of financial aid that she wouldn't otherwise have gotten. The family is $76,000 to the good over 4 years. It's a little known fact, and you have to know a lot of these little facts to know how to optimize your aid form.